Lucas Warren, a young and successful millionaire, stood in front of his sprawling penthouse window, looking out over the cityscape. Despite his immense wealth, Lucas had always felt a void in his life, a longing to know his roots. Raised in luxury by his adoptive parents, he had recently discovered the identity of his biological parents. Driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to connect with his origins, he decided to embark on a journey to meet them. To ensure that his true identity remained concealed, Lucas devised a plan. He would disguise himself as a poor man, hoping to experience his biological parents' genuine reactions and understand their world without the influence of his wealth. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. How would they react to meeting a son they had never known? And more importantly, how would they treat someone they believed to be impoverished? Lucas spent days planning his transformation. He purchased second-hand clothes from thrift stores, practiced speaking with a less refined accent, and even rented a small, run-down apartment in the neighborhood where his biological parents lived. He wanted everything to be perfect, down to the smallest detail. One crisp autumn morning, Lucas donned his new persona. Dressed in worn jeans, a faded t-shirt, and scuffed sneakers, he looked every bit the part of a man struggling to make ends meet. He left behind his luxurious lifestyle, his penthouse, and his expensive car, opting instead for public transportation. As he boarded the bus, Lucas felt a strange mix of excitement and anxiety. He was about to step into a world vastly different from his own. The bus ride was an eye-opener. The people around him were a stark contrast to the affluent individuals he usually interacted with. There were tired faces, parents juggling children and groceries, and elderly individuals clutching their bags tightly. It was a humbling experience, one that Lucas knew he needed. After a long ride, Lucas finally arrived at his destination, a modest, working-class neighborhood. The streets were lined with small houses, many in need of repair. Children played in the yards, their laughter echoing through the streets. It was a far cry from the pristine, manicured lawns of his upscale neighborhood. He walked down the street, heart pounding in his chest until he reached the address he had memorized. The house was small and unassuming, with peeling paint and a creaky front porch. This was it. This was where his biological parents lived. Taking a deep breath, Lucas approached the front door and knocked. The door opened to reveal a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a kind smile. She looked at Lucas with a mixture of curiosity and warmth. "Hello, can I help you?" she asked. Lucas hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Hi, my name is Lucas. I was wondering if I could talk to you for a moment. I'm new in town and looking for some work. I heard you might be able to help." The woman's expression softened. "Of course, come in. My name is Mary. My husband John is in the back. Let me get him." As Lucas stepped inside the modest home, he was struck by its simplicity. The furniture was old but well kept, and the walls were adorned with family photos. There was a sense of warmth and love that permeated the air. Mary called out to her husband, and a moment later, a burly man with a kind face appeared. "John, this is Lucas. He's new in town and looking for work. Maybe you could help him out?" John extended his hand with a friendly smile. "Nice to meet you, Lucas. What kind of work are you looking for?" Lucas shook his hand, feeling a wave of relief. "Anything, really. I just need to get back on my feet." John nodded thoughtfully. "Well, we could always use an extra pair of hands at the garage. It's not much, but it's honest work." Lucas felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you. I appreciate it." As the evening wore on, Lucas found himself sitting at the dinner table with Mary and John, sharing a simple but hearty meal. They talked about their lives, their struggles, and their hopes for the future. Lucas listened intently, absorbing every detail. He learned that John was a mechanic, working long hours to make ends meet, while Mary took care of the home and occasionally did odd jobs around the neighborhood. They were good, hard-working people, and Lucas felt a deep respect for them. Over the next few days, Lucas settled into his new life. He worked at the garage with John, learning the trade and earning the respect of the other workers. Despite the physical labor and the modest pay, Lucas found a sense of fulfillment in the work. He was no longer the untouchable millionaire. He was just another guy trying to get by. In the evenings, he spent time with Mary and John, getting to know them better. They treated him like family, offering him kindness and support without expecting anything in return. For the first time in his life, Lucas felt a genuine connection to his roots. However, as the days turned into weeks, Lucas couldn't shake the growing guilt. He was living a lie, and he knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. He dreaded the day they would discover his true identity. How would they react? Would they feel betrayed? Would they reject him? One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Lucas mustered the courage to ask a question that had been weighing on his mind. "Mary, John, have you ever wondered about the son you gave up for adoption?" Mary's eyes grew misty, and she reached for John's hand. "We think about him every day," she said softly. "We hope he's had a good life, better than what we could have given him." Lucas swallowed hard, feeling a lump in his throat. What if he wasn't doing well? Would you still want to meet him?" John's grip on Mary's hand tightened. "Of course we would. He's our son, no matter what. We would love him unconditionally." Tears welled up in Lucas's eyes. The time had come to reveal the truth. Taking a deep breath, he looked at them and said, "Mary, John, I'm your son." The room fell silent, the air heavy with shock and disbelief. Mary's hand flew to her mouth, and John's eyes widened in astonishment. You're our son?" Mary whispered, her voice trembling. Lucas nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Yes, it's me. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I wanted to know you without the influence of my wealth. I wanted to see how you would treat me if I were just an ordinary man." For a moment, they all sat in stunned silence. Then, slowly, Mary and John reached out and embraced Lucas, holding him tightly. "You're our son," John repeated, his voice filled with emotion. "Nothing else matters." As they held each other, Lucas felt an overwhelming sense of relief and acceptance. He had found his family, not through his wealth or status, but through love and genuine connection. The journey had been difficult, but it had led him to a place he had always longed for, a place where he truly belonged. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions for Lucas and his newfound family. They spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing stories, filling in the gaps of years spent apart. Mary and John couldn't stop marveling at the man their son had become, and Lucas, in turn, was deeply touched by their warmth and acceptance. Lucas's decision to stay in their modest home rather than returning to his luxurious lifestyle was met with some confusion by his parents. However, he assured them that he wanted to understand their world fully and appreciate the life they had led. One evening, as they sat in the cozy living room, Mary pulled out an old, worn photo album. She flipped through the pages, showing Lucas pictures of his childhood, his first steps, his school days, moments he had missed but now cherished seeing. "This was the day you were born," Mary said, pointing to a faded photograph of a newborn wrapped in a blanket. "We were so happy, but we knew we couldn't provide the life you deserved." John nodded, his eyes misty. "It was the hardest decision we ever made, letting you go. But seeing you now, knowing you're safe and successful, it was worth it." Lucas felt a lump in his throat. He had always wondered about the circumstances of his adoption, and now, hearing it from them, he felt a deeper connection. As weeks turned into months, Lucas found himself becoming an integral part of the community. He made friends with the neighbors, helped out with local events, and even started coaching a Little League baseball team. His presence brought a new energy to the neighborhood, and he felt more at home than he ever had in his penthouse. One day, as he was fixing an old car in the garage with John, a young boy named Tommy came running up to him. Lucas, can you come to my birthday party tomorrow? It's going to be at the park, and there'll be cake and games." Lucas smiled, wiping his hands on a rag. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, Tommy." The simplicity of the invitation touched him. It was a stark contrast to the grand, impersonal parties he was used to. Here, he was valued for who he was, not for what he had. As the party drew closer, Lucas decided to contribute something special. He went to a local bakery and ordered a custom cake, decorated with bright colors and Tommy's favorite cartoon characters. The look on Tommy's face when he saw the cake was priceless. His eyes lit up with joy, and he ran to hug Lucas tightly. The party was a success. Children laughed and played, Parents chatted amiably, and Lucas felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. He realized that these simple, genuine moments were what he had been missing in his life of opulence and luxury. That evening, as the sun set and the party came to an end, Lucas sat on the park bench, watching the children play. Mary and John joined him, their faces glowing with pride. "You've brought so much happiness to this neighborhood, Lucas," Mary said, her voice filled with gratitude. John nodded. "We always knew you'd be special, but seeing it firsthand, it's more than we ever imagined." Lucas felt a warmth spread through his chest. He looked at his parents, seeing them not just as the people who gave him life, but as the heart of the community that had welcomed him with open arms. Over time, Lucas began to share more about his past, about the life he led before he found them. He spoke of the business meetings, the endless social events, and the constant pressure to maintain his image. Mary and John listened, their hearts aching for the struggles their son had faced, despite his wealth. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, John spoke up. "Lucas, we're proud of everything you've accomplished, but we're even prouder of the man you've become. You've shown us that true wealth isn't measured by money, but by the love and connections we build." Lucas nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. He had learned so much from them, not just about his roots, but about the values that truly mattered. As he looked around the table, he felt a profound sense of peace. Here, in this modest home with these incredible people, he had found something far more valuable than any fortune. He had found his true self. Life in the neighborhood began to feel more familiar to Lucas. He had fully immersed himself in the daily routines and relationships that defined his parents' world. One morning, as the sun peeked over the rooftops, Lucas joined John at the garage for another day of work. The garage had become more than just a place of employment. It was a hub of the community, where stories were shared, advice was given, and problems were solved. Lucas was tightening the bolts on an old pickup truck when he noticed a woman standing at the entrance, looking hesitant. She was holding the hand of a small boy who clutched a toy car tightly. Lucas wiped his hands on a rag and approached her with a welcoming smile. "Good morning. Can I help you with something?" he asked. The woman looked relieved. "Hi, yes, my car broke down a few blocks away. I don't have much money, but I need it fixed so I can get to work and take my son to school." Lucas glanced at John, who gave a slight nod. "Don't worry, we'll take a look at it," he assured her. "Where is it?" As they walked to the broken-down vehicle, Lucas chatted with the little boy, who eagerly showed him his toy car. It struck Lucas how, despite their difficult circumstances, the boy's eyes sparkled with innocent joy. After diagnosing the problem, Lucas and John quickly set to work. They managed to get the car running again, and the woman's gratitude was palpable. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, tears of relief in her eyes. "You've saved us." Lucas felt a deep satisfaction. "Just take care of yourself and your son," he replied. "That's thanks enough." Days turned into weeks, and Lucas found himself continually drawn into the lives of those around him. Each person he met had a story, a struggle, and a resilience that humbled him. He realized that, despite his wealth, these were the things that truly enriched a person's life. One afternoon, while Lucas was helping Mary in the kitchen, there was a knock on the door. Mary opened it to reveal an elderly man with a kind face and a weathered hat. "Mrs. Warren, I heard your son is back in town. I just wanted to drop off some fresh vegetables from my garden as a welcome." Mary smiled warmly. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Lucas, come say hello." Lucas joined them, shaking the old man's hand. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. It's nice to meet you." As they chatted, Lucas learned that Mr. Thompson had lived in the neighborhood for decades. He shared stories of the community's history, the challenges they had faced, and the bonds that had kept them strong. One story in particular stood out. Mr. Thompson spoke of a time when a major factory in town had closed, leaving many without jobs. The community had rallied together, sharing resources and supporting each other until they could find new work. Lucas was moved by the sense of solidarity and resilience that had characterized the neighborhood for so long. Inspired by these stories, Lucas decided to use his resources to give back. He discreetly funneled money into local projects, fixing up the park, supporting the local school, and funding community events. He wanted to ensure that the spirit of the neighborhood, which had given him so much, continued to thrive. As word of these improvements spread, the community's appreciation grew. They saw Lucas not just as a benefactor, but as one of their own, a person who had come to understand their values and share their burdens. One crisp evening, the neighborhood gathered for a celebration in the newly refurbished park. There were games, music, and an abundance of food. Lucas looked around at the faces of his friends and family, feeling a deep sense of contentment. He had found a place where he truly belonged, not because of his wealth, but because of the connections he had forged. As the night wore on, Mary and John stood beside him, their eyes filled with pride. The sense of home, of belonging, was something Lucas had never fully understood until now. The laughter of children, the shared stories, and the unspoken bonds that tied everyone together were more valuable than any fortune. Through the ups and downs, Lucas had discovered that true wealth lay not in what he possessed, but in the relationships he built and the love he shared. And in this community, he had found a treasure beyond measure. One serene morning, Lucas woke to the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the comforting sounds of Mary humming in the kitchen. As he joined her, the phone rang, breaking the peaceful silence. Mary answered, her face lighting up with surprise. "Lucas, it's for you. Someone from the city," she said, handing him the receiver. Lucas took the phone, curiosity piqued. "Hello, this is Lucas." "Mr. Warren, it's Elizabeth, your personal assistant. I've been trying to reach you. We have an urgent matter that needs your attention back in the city." His heart sank. The life he had left behind seemed so distant now, but he knew he couldn't ignore his responsibilities forever. "What's the issue, Elizabeth?" "There's been an unexpected bid for a takeover of one of your companies. The board is in chaos, and they need you to come back and address the situation." Lucas sighed, feeling the weight of his dual life pressing down on him. "I'll be there tomorrow." After hanging up, he looked at Mary, who had been watching him with concern. "Is everything all right, dear?" "I need to go back to the city for a few days," Lucas explained. "There are some business matters that need my attention." Mary nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "You do what you need to do. We'll be here when you return." The next day, Lucas boarded the train to the city, leaving behind the simplicity and warmth of the neighborhood. As the train sped towards the towering skyscrapers, he felt a sense of dread. The city was his domain, yet it no longer felt like home. Upon arrival, Lucas was immediately swept into a whirlwind of meetings and negotiations. The corporate world was as cutthroat as ever, and he had to be at the top of his game. Days turned into nights filled with paperwork, strategy sessions, and sleepless hours. Despite the chaos, Lucas managed to stabilize the situation. The takeover bid was thwarted and the company was back on solid ground. But as he sat in his expansive office looking out over the city skyline, he felt a gnawing emptiness. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Lucas received a visitor. Elizabeth walked into his office, followed by a man who looked vaguely familiar. "Lucas, this is Mr. Donnelly. He's the private investigator you hired to find your biological parents," Elizabeth explained. Lucas stood up, extending his hand. "Mr. Donnelly, it's good to see you again. What brings you here?" Mr. Donnelly smiled warmly. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by. I've been following your story, Lucas, and I wanted to see how you're doing." Lucas motioned for him to sit. "I'm doing well, thank you. It's been an eye-opening experience, reconnecting with my roots." Mr. Donnelly nodded. "I can imagine. It's not every day a man of your stature decides to live as an ordinary person. How are your parents?" "They're wonderful," Lucas said, his face lighting up. "They've accepted me completely, and I've learned so much from them." The conversation turned to lighter topics, and for a moment, Lucas felt a sense of normalcy. As Mr. Donnelly prepared to leave, he handed Lucas a small, leather-bound notebook. "I found this during my search," he explained. "It's a journal your biological mother kept before you were born. I thought you might like to have it." Lucas took the journal, feeling its weight in his hands. "Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. This means a lot to me." After he left, Lucas sat alone in his office, staring at the journal. He opened it carefully, the pages yellowed with age. His mother's handwriting was delicate and elegant, filled with hopes, dreams, and fears. As he read, he felt an even deeper connection to her, understanding her struggles and sacrifices. That night, Lucas made a decision. He packed his things, leaving a note for Elizabeth to handle the remaining business matters. The city would always be there, but his place was with the people who had shown him what it meant to truly live. Back in the neighborhood, life had continued as usual. Children played in the streets, neighbors chatted on their porches, and the garage buzzed with activity. When Lucas returned, he was greeted with open arms and warm smiles. Mary and John were thrilled to have him back. Over dinner, they shared stories of what had happened in his absence. Lucas felt a profound sense of belonging, knowing that this was where he was meant to be. As the days passed, Lucas found a balance between his responsibilities in the city and his life in the neighborhood. He commuted back and forth, ensuring his businesses ran smoothly while staying deeply connected to his roots. One sunny afternoon, as Lucas helped John repair a particularly stubborn engine, he looked around at the bustling garage and the friendly faces. This was his life now, a perfect blend of simplicity and purpose, grounded in love and community. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood, Lucas received a call from Mary. Her voice trembled with concern. "Lucas, it's about John. He hasn't been feeling well lately. Could you come home a bit earlier?" Lucas's heart skipped a beat. "I'll be there as soon as I can." Rushing through the city streets, Lucas couldn't help but feel a deep worry. John had always been a pillar of strength and resilience. The thought of him being unwell was unsettling. When Lucas arrived, he found Mary sitting by John's side in their living room. John's face, usually full of vitality, looked pale and tired. Lucas knelt beside him, gripping his hand. "What's going on, Dad?" John attempted a weak smile. "I'm all right, son. Just feeling a bit under the weather." Mary's eyes were filled with tears. "We've made an appointment with the doctor for tomorrow. We need to find out what's wrong." The next day, they went to the doctor's office together. The atmosphere was tense as they awaited the results of John's tests. When the doctor finally entered, his expression was serious. "John, you have a condition that we need to address immediately. It's not something that can be ignored." The words hung heavily in the air. Lucas felt a wave of dread wash over him. "What do we need to do, doctor?" "We'll need to start treatment right away. It will be a tough road, but with the right care and support, there's hope." Determined to support John through this ordeal, Lucas arranged for the best medical care and made sure he had everything he needed. The neighborhood rallied around them, offering help and comfort. It was a testament to the strong bonds they had formed. As John began his treatment, Lucas found himself spending more time at home, helping Mary with household chores and ensuring John stayed comfortable. Despite the challenges, there were moments of profound connection and love that buoyed their spirits. One evening, as Lucas sat by John's bedside, they talked about life and the twists and turns it had taken. John's voice was soft but filled with warmth. "You know, Lucas, I've always believed that everything happens for a reason. Meeting you, having you back in our lives, it's been the greatest blessing." Lucas squeezed his father's hand, his eyes moist with emotion. "I feel the same way, Dad. You've taught me more about life and love than I ever learned from all my years in the city." The months passed with a mixture of hope and anxiety. John's condition fluctuated, but his spirit remained unbroken. Lucas marveled at his father's strength and resilience. He drew inspiration from John's courage, finding a deeper appreciation for the simple, beautiful moments they shared. Meanwhile, the neighborhood continued to thrive. Lucas's efforts had brought new life to the community, and the bonds between the residents grew stronger every day. They organized fundraisers for John's treatment, cooked meals for Mary, and offered constant emotional support. One sunny afternoon, as Lucas was working in the garage, he heard laughter and music coming from the park. Curious, he wandered over to find a surprise celebration organized by the community. It was a heartfelt gesture to show their gratitude and support for Lucas and his family. Tears filled Lucas's eyes as he looked around at the smiling faces. The love and unity of the neighborhood were palpable. He felt a profound sense of belonging and purpose, knowing that he was part of something much larger than himself. As the evening drew to a close, Lucas found a quiet moment with Mary. They sat together, watching the stars twinkle above. Mary rested her head on his shoulder, her voice filled with gratitude. "Lucas, we couldn't have gotten through this without you. You've brought so much light into our lives." Lucas kissed her forehead, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "We're a family, Mom. We'll always be there for each other." The days turned into weeks, and John's health slowly began to improve. It was a long and difficult journey, but the unwavering support of the neighborhood and the love of his family made all the difference. Through it all, Lucas learned that true wealth was not measured by material possessions, but by the depth of human connections and the power of love. And in the embrace of his family and community, he found a richness that surpassed anything he had ever known. "Hi, Lucas. I don't know if you remember me, but I used to live here when I was a kid. I've been away for a while, and I just came back." Lucas smiled warmly. "Of course I remember you, Emily. Welcome back. How have you been?" Emily explained that she had left to pursue her education and had recently returned to be closer to her family. She wanted to give back to the community that had given her so much growing up. "I heard about the work you've been doing here," Emily said. "I'd love to help out in any way I can." Lucas welcomed her offer, knowing that every bit of support made a difference. Emily's return marked the beginning of a new chapter for the neighborhood. She brought fresh ideas and energy, eager to contribute to the community's ongoing growth and improvement. Together, Lucas and Emily organized educational workshops, after-school programs for kids, and support groups for parents. The neighborhood thrived, becoming a place where everyone felt valued and supported. As the seasons changed, Lucas reflected on the path that had led him to this point. The challenges he had faced, the people he had met, and the lessons he had learned had all shaped him into a better person. He had discovered a sense of purpose and fulfillment that went beyond material success. One crisp autumn day, as he stood in the park watching children play, Lucas felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see John, looking healthier and happier than ever. "You've done so much for this place, Lucas," John said, his voice filled with pride. "We're all better for it." Lucas smiled, his heart full. "I couldn't have done it without you and Mom and everyone here. This community is what makes it all possible." The two men stood in silence for a moment, watching the world around them. It was a place of warmth, love, and endless possibilities. A place where Lucas had found his true home. As the chill of winter set in, the neighborhood was blanketed in a soft layer of snow. The festive season was approaching, and there was a palpable sense of excitement in the air. Lucas, now a central figure in the community, was busy organizing the annual holiday festival, a cherished tradition that brought everyone together. One afternoon, while decorating the town square with twinkling lights and garlands, Lucas received a call from Elizabeth. "Lucas, I've been managing the city business as you requested, but there's a development you need to know about." Lucas stepped away from the bustling activity, concern etched on his face. "What's happened?" "There's a major investor interested in one of your companies, and they want to meet with you personally. It could be a significant opportunity, but they're insisting on meeting in person." Lucas felt a pang of conflict. He didn't want to leave the neighborhood, especially not during such an important time. But he knew he couldn't ignore his responsibilities. "All right, set up the meeting. I'll be there tomorrow." That evening, Lucas explained the situation to Mary and John. "I have to go back to the city for a few days. There's something urgent I need to handle." Mary nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "We know you'll do what's best, Lucas. Just come back soon, okay?" The next morning, Lucas boarded the train to the city, his mind racing with thoughts of the upcoming meeting. Upon arrival, he was greeted by Elizabeth, who briefed him on the details. "The investor is Mr. Reynolds. He's known for being tough but fair. If we can secure his investment, it could mean great things for the company." Lucas met with Mr. Reynolds in a sleek, high-rise office. The man was imposing, with sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Mr. Warren, it's a pleasure to finally meet you," Reynolds said, extending a firm handshake. "Likewise, Mr. Reynolds," Lucas replied, taking a seat. "I understand you're interested in investing in our company." Reynolds nodded. "Indeed, I've been impressed by your portfolio and your management style. But I have to admit, I'm curious about your recent activities. It's not often I see a CEO spending so much time away from the office. Lucas explained his situation, the discovery of his biological parents, and his commitment to their community. Reynolds listened intently, his expression unreadable. When Lucas finished, Reynolds leaned back in his chair. I admire your dedication to your family and community. It's rare to find someone in your position who hasn't lost sight of what truly matters. I believe we can work together, but I have one condition. Lucas braced himself. What is it? I want to visit this neighborhood you've been talking about. I want to see firsthand the impact you're making. Lucas was taken aback, but agreed. Of course, I'll arrange everything. A few days later, Reynolds accompanied Lucas back to the neighborhood. The contrast between the bustling city and the tranquil, snow-covered streets was striking. Lucas introduced Reynolds to Mary and John, who welcomed him warmly. Reynolds spent the day observing the community, talking to residents, and seeing the various projects Lucas had initiated. As the day drew to a close, they gathered in the park, now adorned with festive lights and decorations for the holiday festival. Reynolds turned to Lucas, his expression softer than before. I'm impressed, Lucas. You've created something truly special here. It's clear you're not just a businessman, you're a leader who cares about people. Lucas felt a surge of pride. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. This place means everything to me. Reynolds nodded. I'm in. I'll invest in your company, but I also want to contribute to this community. Consider it a partnership. The relief and joy on Lucas's face were evident. That's incredible. Thank you. The holiday festival was a resounding success. The neighborhood came alive with laughter, music, and a sense of unity that warmed even the coldest winter night. Lucas watched as families enjoyed the festivities, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. As the evening wound down, Reynolds approached Lucas once more. You've reminded me of something important, Lucas. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle of business and forget what truly matters. Thank you for that. Lucas smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of a new chapter. With the support of Reynolds and the unwavering love of his family and community, the future looked brighter than ever. The days leading up to the new year were filled with a flurry of activity. The partnership with Mr. Reynolds had brought new opportunities and resources, allowing Lucas to expand his efforts both in the city and the neighborhood. The sense of accomplishment was profound, yet there was one final event that Lucas wanted to make unforgettable. Lucas decided to organize a grand New Year's Eve celebration, a symbol of gratitude and hope for the future. The entire neighborhood buzzed with excitement, each resident eager to contribute. Lucas and Emily spearheaded the preparations, ensuring every detail was perfect. On the morning of December 31st, a light snowfall blanketed the town, creating a picturesque winter wonderland. The park, now the heart of the community, was transformed into a magical venue with twinkling fairy lights, a large bonfire, and beautifully decorated pavilions. A stage was set for live music, and food stalls offered a variety of delicious treats. As evening fell, people began to gather, wrapped in warm coats and scarves. The air was filled with the sound of laughter, the aroma of hot cocoa, and the joyful anticipation of the festivities. Lucas stood with his parents, Emily and Mr. Reynolds, watching the scene unfold with a heart full of pride and happiness. The celebration began with a heartfelt speech from Lucas. Standing on the stage, he looked out at the sea of familiar faces, his voice steady and filled with emotion. Tonight, we celebrate not just the end of a year, but the beginning of a new chapter for all of us. This community has shown me the true meaning of family, friendship, and resilience. Thank you for accepting me, for supporting me, and for allowing me to be a part of something so extraordinary. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the night. Music filled the air as a local band took the stage, and people danced, laughed, and enjoyed the festivities. Lucas moved through the crowd, greeting friends, sharing stories, and soaking in the warmth of the moment. As midnight approached, the excitement grew. Everyone gathered near the stage, their faces lit by the glow of the bonfire. Lucas stood with Mary and John, his arms around them, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Emily joined them, her smile radiant. The countdown began, and the air was thick with anticipation. 10, 9, 8! The voices grew louder with each passing second. 3, 2, 1! Happy New Year! Fireworks exploded in the sky, painting it with brilliant colors. The crowd erupted in cheers, hugs, and kisses. It was a moment of pure joy, a testament to the strength and unity of the community. Lucas looked around, his heart swelling with pride. This was more than he had ever dreamed of, a place where he truly belonged, surrounded by people who loved and supported him. The struggles, the sacrifices, and the hard work had all led to this beautiful culmination. In the midst of the celebration, Mr. Reynolds approached Lucas, a look of admiration on his face. "You've done something remarkable here, Lucas. This community is a reflection of your heart and your dedication. I'm honored to be a part of it." Lucas shook his hand, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Your support means the world to us." As the night wore on, the festivities continued. Lucas found himself standing at the edge of the park, looking out at the twinkling lights and the happy faces. Emily joined him, slipping her hand into his. "You've created something truly magical, Lucas," she said softly. Lucas smiled, squeezing her hand. "We did it together, Emily. This is our home, our family." In that moment, Lucas knew that his life had come full circle. He had discovered his roots, built meaningful connections, and found a sense of purpose that transcended wealth and success. The future was bright, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of new beginnings. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Lucas stood with his loved ones, embracing the promise of the new year. It was a time of hope, of love, and of dreams fulfilled. And in the heart of the neighborhood, surrounded by his family and friends, Lucas had found his true place in the world.